you that.
What binder?
My Algebra II binder.
Gotcha. Okay, no big deal. You don't need it right now. I'm going to be giving you some sheets. Okay, so we're going to be looking at converting from one form to another. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is, what if I have something in an equation in standard form and I want to convert it to vertex form? Now, I have your step-by-step instructions in the notes for you, so you don't have to write down the step-by-step. That's in the notes that I'm copying for you right now. But you can just write down this example if you want to. So let's just say I have 3x squared plus 5x plus 6. I'm just making this one up. 3x squared plus 5x plus 6. Now, I'm going to notice that a equals 3, right? A equals 3. So now, let's take a look at, in vertex form, what do I need? What can I get from vertex form? What's the name of that form? Vertex.
Vertex.
So what does it have in it?
It has the vertex.
The vertex, right. So, I just need to know the vertex, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to write vertex form?
The vertex. Well, x and y.
No, just H and K. And A. I know what A is. I just need H and K, don't I? That's all I need is H and K. How can I find, now H and K are the vertex, aren't they? They're the vertex. In vertex form, instead of x and y, the x and y coordinate of the vertex, they just call it H and K when your equation is in vertex form, right? They call it, because you have x and y, H and K are used to stand for the vertex of the equation, of the parabola. Okay, so I have standard form and I want to write this parabola in vertex form. It's going to be the same equation, but instead of standard form, I want to write it in vertex form. Well, I know what A is. How do I find the vertex from standard form?
Negative b over 2a.
Very good. Very good. Negative b over 2a. Then how do I find y?
You plug x in to find y.
Right, or f of negative b over 2a. So if we call this f of x, first of all, I find negative b over 2a. That's negative 5/6, right? Negative 5/6. So now I know that this is, my a is 3, so it's 3, x plus negative 5, let me write this better, negative 5/6 squared minus k. Now, plus negative is just minus, isn't it? Right? So, now, from this equation, I found that the x-coordinate of my vertex is negative 5/6. The x-coordinate of my vertex is negative 5/6. Now, I take f, and in place of x, I put negative 5/6, don't I? That's why it's called f of negative b over 2a, because negative b over 2a is 5/6. So I find f of negative 5/6, and that equals 3 times negative 5/6 squared. Let me do it under here. I'm running out of space here. 3 times negative 5/6 squared plus 5 times 5/6 plus 6. Right? Now, you can punch it into your calculator and then ask for your answer in a fraction form. You can do that. Let's do it by hand. This is 3 times 5/6 squared. Well, we know it's going to be positive. A negative times a negative is positive. 5 squared is 25. 6 squared is 36. So I've squared that. 5 times 5 sixths. 5 times 5 is 25. Let me make that clearer so I can read it. 25 sixths plus 6. So I squared this one, and I multiplied this times this. I could do that at the same time. Now I'm going to multiply 3 times 25 sixths. 3 times 25 is 75 over 36 plus, now I need to write that with a denominator of 36, don't I? Your phone's not on your lap, is it? Does your mom know that I'm teaching at this moment? Get your phone out. Bring it up here. Text your mother. Let me see. Text your mother. Miss Laurie asked me to tell you that at this very moment, I am teaching a new concept. You've got to listen to this. Do you think your mother wanted you to text her back in the middle of a new concept?
Probably not.
She probably wanted you to say, hold on, Miss Laurie's teaching a new concept, right? Okay. So now, we have to make this have a denominator of 36, don't we? How do we do that, Lucas? What is 25 over 6 with a denominator of 36?
I'm not good at fractions.
I want to write 25 sixths, but I want it to have a denominator of 36.
So you can multiply it by 6.
That's right. 6 over 6, right? Does everybody understand what I just did? Mm-hmm. So instead of writing 25 sixths, I'm just going to go ahead and write 150 over 36 because I know I'm going to need it to be able to add it. Does that make sense, Zach? Now, same thing with 6. What is 6 going to be if I write it as with a denominator of 36?
216.
36 over 6 would be a denominator of 6.
Yes. 216 over 36.
Very good. I have 6 over 1. I want to write it with a denominator of 6, right? I have 6. I want to write it with a denominator of 36. 1 times 36 is 36. So 6 times 36 is what?
216.
216. 216 over 36. Now I can add them up. 150, 225, 325, 425, 435, 441.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. 441 over 36. Is 441 divisible by 6? No, because it's not divisible by 2. Hello. It can't be if it's not divisible by 2. I think 441 might be prime. Put 441 divided by 36 and change it to a fraction in your calculator.
441 divided by
36?
Oh, it's 49 over 4.
Yeah. 49 over 4. It reduces, thank you, to 49 over 4. That's what I'm looking for. So now, f of negative 5 6 is 49 over 4. That's my y coordinate. 3 times x minus 5 6 squared minus, I'm sorry, I have this wrong. Negative and plus. Negative and negative. X minus h squared plus k. Y'all, I had the formula wrong. X minus h squared plus k. Let's back up because I'm rushing and I wrote this wrong. This is x minus h squared plus k. A is 3. My x coordinate of my vertex is negative 5 6. Here's my formula, and then I put negative 5 6 there. Do you see that? My formula has a minus sign in it. My h is negative 5 6. So minus negative gives me a plus here. My formula has a plus sign here, and my answer is 49 fourths. So to go from standard form to vertex form, I write down A, I find my x coordinate, and then I find my y coordinate of my vertex. Any questions about that? Remember x minus h squared plus k, because I wrote that wrong, s minus h squared plus k. Now, there's another way to do this. The one way to go from standard form to vertex form is basically to use negative b over 2a. It's the easiest way. Use negative b over 2a. You have a, you find negative b over 2a, you plug that in to find your y. That's the easiest way. There is another way, and we use completing the square to go from standard form to vertex form, but we're not going to do that today. You only use that if the program that you're using in college requires you to use completing the square. So you have to know how to do it, but we're not going to do that today. But right now, and whenever you have a choice to go from standard form to vertex form, you're just going to use negative b over 2a and then plug that in. Right? That's the only thing you're going to do to go from standard form to vertex. So we looked at standard form to vertex form. Right? We did that one. To go from standard form to vertex form, we just call it use negative b over 2a. That's what we call it. Find the vertex starting with looking for negative b over 2a. Now, let's talk about going from vertex form to standard form. So if I have y equals 3x plus 2 squared minus 5. This is in vertex form, isn't it? Right? This is in vertex form. The way we go from vertex to standard is we just expand it. Now, what does that mean to expand it? We say 3 times x plus 2 squared is x plus 2 times x plus 2, isn't it? That's what this means. X plus 2 squared means x plus 2 times x plus 2. And then we have our minus 5. We've expanded it. Now, we're first going to do this. 3x squared plus 4x plus 4 minus 5. I foiled this, didn't I? I foiled it. I added these two here, and I multiplied these two here. That's the shortcut to foiling when there's no coefficient in front of the x. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is apply the 3, because it's 3 times everything in parentheses, not 3 times 5. So first I FOIL, second I apply A, that's 3x squared plus 12x plus 12 minus 5. And then the third thing I do is I move this in. I collect my like terms. That's 3x squared plus 12x plus 12 minus 5 is plus 7. So y equals 3x squared plus 12x plus 7. I've gone from vertex form to standard form. You just expand it. Any questions about that? Now, if I wanted to go back from standard form to vertex form, A is 3. I would write that there. Then I would find negative b over 2a, negative 12 over 2 times 3. Negative 12 over 6 equals negative 2. You see this? This is, my vertex is negative 2, isn't it? Because x lies, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. You see that? So I would write 3, well, let me just write it like this. A x minus h squared plus k. If I wanted to go from this one back to vertex form, I plug in my 3. I write my x minus because that's part of my formula. Now, -2 is the x-coordinate of my vertex. I write -2 here. And you see how I would make 2 marks there, right? So I get x plus 2. Now, I plug in -2 into this equation. 3 times -2 squared plus 12 times -2 plus 7. What do you think that equals? Yeah, -5. This is 3 times 4 is 12, plus -24 is -12, plus 7 is -5. Now, look at the plus sign is part of my equation. K is -5. You see that? Make sure, Lucas, tune in right here. Make sure you understand that. Right here, I have x minus, then this -2 goes here, this -5 goes here, but this is part of this, right? Okay, so now this is 3 times x plus 2 squared minus 5. And you can see I've gone right back to vertex form. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay, so now we know how to go from standard form to vertex form and vertex form to standard form, right? So now what I want to find out is, how do I go to factored form? From standard form to factored form. I just factor it. I might have to use the quadratic formula if it's not factorable. I might have to use the quadratic formula, and I will have to use it if it's not factorable. So let's say I have f of x equals x squared plus 5x plus 6. This is in standard form, right? To go from standard form to factored form, all I do is factor it, right? I factor it. Now my zeros are x equals -2 and x equals -3. Right, Matthew? Those are my zeros.
Yep.
I can only get those from factored form, right?
Right.
Or quadratic formula. Now, remember, if we have something like x squared plus 5x plus 4, I cannot factor that. So I'm going to use quadratic formula to get my zeros, and then I'm going to go from my zeros to my factors. Do you remember how we did that? Okay, to go from, you're going to use quadratic formula. You're going to find your zeros, and then from your zeros, you're going to, and how do we do that? Let's review that. Suppose I had these 2 zeros from factored form. My phone's just blowing up. Make sure it's not an emergency here.
That's the alarm.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay. Thank you. So how do we go from our zeros to our factors? Remember, we add 2 to both sides. We make it equal 0. X plus 2 equals 0. Here we add 3 to both sides. X plus 3 equals 0. We make this equal 0, and these are our factors. Does everybody remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, to go from vertex form to factored form, you first have to go from vertex to standard, and then from standard to factored. We know how to go from vertex to standard, and we know how to go from standard to factored. That's how we have to go from vertex to factored. We have to go vertex to standard, and then standard to factored. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, how do we go from factored to standard? How do you think we go from factored to standard? Lucas, how are we going to go from factored to standard? So let's take a look at this. Let's put something in factored form. Yes. Here's something in factored form, isn't it? That's in factored form. How am I going to put that in standard form? Foil it. Foil it. Now, how do you think I'm going to go from factored to vertex?
You foil it and then you do negative b over 2a.
That's right. Look, how do I go from vertex to factored? Vertex to standard to factored. So how do I go from factored to vertex? Factored to standard to vertex.
And you said all this is in our notes?
Yeah. No, this part isn't. Yeah. It's not summarized like this. Let me go get your pages. And your mom texted me. I'm going to check to see what it is in just a minute. No? All right. You have a question for me?
No.
Yeah.
How far over is it?
Oh, yeah, sure. You just need one or do you need this? Here you go.
Or just in case I'm confused about my notes.
I'm sorry?
You can picture
Listen
that.
carefully. Listen carefully. What page are you on right now?
180.
Your last page is 180?
Yes, ma'am.
I want you to number these pages yourself. Okay? I want you to number these pages yourself. Now, the first page shows you the first page shows you how to complete the square. We're not doing that yet, right? So you're going to do everything except for the first page. You're going to number your pages, and then you're going to do everything. Go get me the Lucas, go get me the 3-hole puncher if you don't mind.
Where is it?
By Miss Diana's desk. Probably right next to the printer. So you're going to number these pages, and then you're going to ignore page 181, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we will go over that. When we get back. You can hold punch this one. One's ready. The other one's not ready yet. Yes, you can handle that one.
So it's 182 to the rest of to the end pretty much.
Right.
Okay.
But there's one other piece of information I want to give you about this. There are some questions about range and domain. If you have trouble with those, just mark them. Next week, we will go over domain and range, and we will go over completing the square. We will not have a test next week, but if you need to make this one up, if you need to do this one again, you can complete it again for half credit. Of course, unless it's been excused or you have, basically an extension. You're not listening. How many times did I say?
Well, I thought I heard it.
What page is your last page? 180. So what is going to be this page number? The first of this page number. No, you're on 180. You're going to put this in here. So what's going to be that page number? 181. 181. You're going to number them. Who wants to number them quickly for me?
It goes to 205.
206.
There's nothing else.
We'll do 205. Y'all don't have to do the last page because it's blank. So.
No, it was 206. I didn't count that page.
Oh, you didn't? Uh-oh. Double check. I'll put 206 just in case. I'll put 206 just in case. It should end on an odd number, though.
Yeah.
Oh, no, because it started on 181. No, yeah, it should end on an odd number.
I'm just gonna put 206.
Look forward
That's
to.
it.
Go to the asylum.
If you get a text that there's no 206, then
Tick fall. That's in tick fall.
So you're going to complete everything, but you're not going to look at completing the square. If you have questions about domain and range, just set them aside. We will talk about them. Right? And if you want to retake this test, you can get half credit more. So if you made a 70, if you come in and make a 100 on it, then you can get 15 points back. The difference is
Mark
30.
this page or is just not?
Yes, mark that page. Yeah, if you have a blank page, mark it with a number. That might be the problem. If you have a blank page, mark it with a number.
So it's 206.
It should still end on an up. Yeah, but if you do the last blank page,
Yes.
it's 206. Yeah. And then if you want to finish your test, are you finishing your test, Lucas?
I think I'm okay. I don't wanna, because you answered one of my questions up there, I don't wanna go back.
I have to go back and finish it.
Yes, you shouldn't go back and do that, but I mean, you actually could, but you shouldn't.
I'd rather not.
Are we dismissed or?
Yes.
Sorry.
3 hours for biology tomorrow, no
Tomorrow.
ACT.
Okay.
Tomorrow?
Yes.
I'll tell Max and Sullivan.
Thank you. I believe I told them today, but yes, remind them. 3 hours, no ACT.
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Thursday for
I'm
Thursday.
like, tomorrow?
For Thursday, yes.
It's gonna
That's
make
what I mean, Thursday.
I'm like, what? We're not doing anything else?
That's the one thing, I'm actually pretty happy about that because I have a study guide for all of this stuff and I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to study all the way.
For all of what stuff?
Biology. You had us write, I just wrote study guide, but you had us write down everything that you wanted. Remember?
Yes, I had you write down everything from the video.
Wait, so, and then anything that you went over, I just wrote.
And so you're talking about you have a study guide for our test on Thursday. Gotcha.
From biology.
Yes.
And so I was assuming that ACT would take me an extremely long time.
Okay.
I think I'll just sit down. I want
Okay.
a good study week. You know how the ACT came up on Saturday with like, and we basically had to like study for it and whatnot. I didn't do very good.
On the
honestly.
ACT? But
And,
this is why, right here. Let me turn this off.
Oh,